So what you're about to hear is a woman waking up as she's being written into a book. So I'll give you the synopsis because this is the very beginning of the story, that we have a sense of what's coming after this reading. Madison, the main character, wakes up as she's being written into a book. She's recently broken up with her girlfriend and she sees the potential for love everywhere, except for the one person who has loved her from the beginning, the author. Now, the author mostly listens to Madison's lewd and offensive reactions, which you'll hear some of, and adjusts her story accordingly to make her happy, while attempting to shape her behaviors. When the author realizes she can no longer control Madison, she jumps into the book, inserting herself into the story. The author, now without the power of the pen or the keyboard, must learn how to get Madison to trust her own judgment so they can live happily ever after. And just a side note, I make mention of Harper Bliss, who's a relatively popular lesbic author.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so click-clack, click-click-clack, tappity-tap. Fingers flew over the Bluetooth keyboard. Madison felt every stroke in her very being. She awoke, slightly dazed, and reached across the bed for her lover. But the bed was empty and cold. The only sign anyone had even been there was the slight mess of the sheets, though in reality, that could have been her tossing and turning all night. She suddenly felt very tired. Oh. She looked around the room for a sign, any sort of sign to say she wasn't really alone. Maybe Joe was in the bathroom. Whoa, wait a minute there, she called out in a still sleepy voice, a hint of humor seeping through. The keystroke slowed, then stopped. She cleared her throat, then continued. Joe? I'm a lesbian, for fuck's sake. At least give me a female ex-lover. She felt the backspace key, and then looked around the room for a sign. Any sort of sign to say she wasn't really alone. Maybe Josephine was in the bathroom. Key the record scratch. Josephine. Really, I mean, can't you come up with a name that Harper Bliss hasn't already used? Tap, tap, tap. Maybe Amanda was in the bathroom. But the bathroom light was off, and the scent of sweet mandarin shampoo that would have been wafting out with the mist was absent. The scent of Amanda wasn't even on the pillowcase. It had been too many days since she'd last stayed there. Too many days since she'd even seen her at the warehouse cafeteria where she worked. No, hell no. You are not making me a friggin' warehouse worker, okay? I've got more class than that, honey. Click, click, clack. It had been too many days since she'd seen her near the water cooler at the office where she worked. And not once had she heard anything. No call, no text, no email, no news. Not even a post-it on her desk to say Amanda was leaving. I feel so lonely, she said, tears threatening as she groggily made her way out from under the warm blanket. She stumbled sleepily into the bathroom, washed her face, and then looked in the mirror. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She'd been crying all night. I'm so tired of being sad, she whined. Please, can you just make me happy? She took out her journal and wrote her first entry for the day. She titled it, What Am I Most Grateful For Today? And wrote below it, 1. I got a full night's rest. 2. I still have a job. 3. She scratched the side of her nose, not quite picking, but getting close to it, as she thought of number 3. And finally she wrote, I'm still alive. And that was that. At work, Madison sat down at her desk and stared at the spreadsheet in front of her. Fuck, I hate numbers, she mumbled under her breath, and then quickly opened up the word processor she'd need for her blog post that day. That's much better, she sighed. After a few hours of writing, she stood up to stretch her 5-foot, 2-inch frame and... No way. If I'm gonna be a fictional character, I better be tall and sexy. She stood up and stretched her 5-foot, 9-inch frame, barely noticing how Zoe from 2 cubicles down was staring at her ample chest. Sure, Why would I notice that? She chuckled to herself as she grabbed her empty coffee mug and headed toward the kitchenette. As she poured black coffee into the mug, then added a bit of creamer, Zoe came up behind her and waited with her own empty mug. Zoe was shifting from foot to foot nervously. Madison turned around to say hello, catching Zoe's eyes right as they skimmed her perfectly rounded buttocks. Hello, Zoe, she said, smirking. Zoe's light complexion turned a bright shade of pink. Hold up. Wait. Is this going to be my love interest? Because I'd really prefer tall, dark, and handsome. She wanted to fall in love with someone who was tall, dark, and handsome. But what she didn't realize was that she was now the tall, dark, and handsome one in this story. She shook her head and walked back to her cubicle, full coffee cup in hand, ready for another hour of writing.